မင်္ဂလာပါခင်ဗျာလေးလာဝေမျှတိကြရ social media program လေးကနေပြီးတော့ကြိုဆိုလိုက်ပါတယ်ကျွန်တော်တို့အပတ်စဉ်ထုတ်လွှင့်နေကြဖြစ်တဲ့ကျွန်တော်တို့ The Voice of Youth program လေးကိုအခုစတင်မှာဖြစ်ပါတယ်ဒီ show လေးကတော့အခုဆိုရင်ကျွန်တော်တို့၄ချိန်မြောက် show ဖြစ်ပါတယ်ကျွန်တော်တို့ American ပြည်ထောင်စုမှာဆိုရင်တော့ Tuesday night ကျွန်တော်တို့7:30 California time 10:30 New York time ဗမာပြည်မှာဆိုရင်တော့ဗုဒ္ဓနေ့မနေ့9နာရီဖြစ်ပါတယ်ကျွန်တော်တို့အပတ်စဉ် the voice of youth လို့ခေါ်တဲ့လူငယ်များအသံကိုကျွန်တော်တို့ဗုဒ္ဓနေ့မနေ့တိုင်းကျွန်တော်တို့ထုတ်လွှင့်နေပါတယ်ကျွန်တော်တို့ဒီနေ့ကတော့၄ချိန်မြောက်မှာကျွန်တော်တို့ပထမဦးဆုံးအချိန်အနေနဲ့ The Voice of Youth International Program လေးကိုလည်းကျွန်တော်စတင်လိုက်တာဖြစ်ပါတယ်ကျွန်တော်တို့မြန်မာနဲ့ပတ်သက်တဲ့ The Voice of Youth မြန်မာကတော့နှစ်ပတ်တစ်ခါကျွန်တော်တို့ထုတ်လွှင့်မှာဖြစ်တယ်လို့ကျွန်တော်တို့ဒီ The Voice of Youth International ကိုလည်းနှစ်ပတ်တစ်ခါထုတ်လွှင့်မှာဖြစ်ပါအဲ့တော့တပတ်ချားစီဒီ program လေးကမြန်မာ program ရဲ့ international program ရဲ့ဆိုပြီးတော့ကျွန်တော်တို့နှစ်မျိုးဖြစ်မှာဖြစ်ပါ Hi everyone today we're going to talk about martial law under the title of the martial law in 1972 September 21st dictator Marcos declared their martial law in Philippines. Today is the 49th commemoration of anniversary for martial law. Today we went to the Filipino, I think Filipino office, and we protest against the martial law who ruled the Philippines in 1972. So I would like to introduce some of my guest speakers. So from Philippine youth, Nicole Rivera, and another one is Justine. So they join us and talk about martial law and Philippine situation. At the same time, so our program director Su Yi from Burma, so Burmese activist, and also another one is Wim Mon Yi. She also from Burma, but anyway she was born in here and grew up in here. So anyway, they are free Burma activists. All of them. Everybody, welcome to our show. So my first question is, what is a martial law? Definition of martial law. What is a martial law? So may I ask to Nicole first?
Yeah, so martial law is the complete control of the government over the state through military means, over the livelihood of the citizens. Yes. And if Justine wanted to add on.
Hi, Justine. Welcome.
Hi. Yeah, and using the president's position as commander-in-chief, he's able to leverage his political power in order to legitimize whatever he wants to do as president, as commander-in-chief, as the sole ruler of the country under martial law.
Sure. How about Wim Mon Yi?
I think martial law is used as a tool, historically as a tool of repression to quell resistance. And so in the Philippines and today's program, we're really grateful and humbled to be working and fighting and learning alongside League of Filipino students, Nicole Rivera and Justine Lim. So thanks y'all for being here. And yeah, with martial law, you know, it's atrocious. It's using the weapons, the state apparatus to fully use any means necessary to like quell the resistance of the people from Myanmar to the Philippines. And yeah, in today's program, we declare as such, from Myanmar to the Philippines, Youth Against Fascism, let us be the last generation under dictatorship.
Su Yi?
So I think like you guys already talked about it now. What I wanted to talk about was I know you guys had an event today. Would you like to share some of the stuff that happened, like what went into organizing it, and how do you guys feel like after that, after the event? Yeah.
I can go first. I
Okay.
was able to be, yeah. I was able to be there in person, and we were able to highlight the conditions now in the Philippines. Like, even though martial law was 49 years ago, we still see the people in the Philippines suffer. For one, we see the health situation worsen since the pandemic. Like, people continue to die. There is no mass testing. There is no vaccinations. Like, it's not accessible to the people. And we just see the rise in cases of positive cases of COVID. And of course, who do we see who suffers the most? Workers, peasants, poor people. And that's why we were out there today to acknowledge that, even though we are in the US, because our struggles are connected. Yeah.
Thank you. And Justin?
Yeah. And adding on to that, oftentimes Duterte is described as modern day Marcos. And the reason why there's a lot of parallels is because under Duterte's war on drugs and his anti-terror law, he targets workers and poor folks, and generally uses that to suppress political dissent. And in the same way, the Marcos administration and the Duterte administration has record numbers of human rights violations, and to quell dissent, they try to hold on to power by any means necessary. And under the circumstance, it's through excessive state terror.
Thank you. So I'd like to ask Wimunyi first of all, if you compare with the Philippines, how was the Burma? What happened in 1988, 62, and now Spring Myanmar Revolution? Could you
Yeah,
explain a little
I
bit?
think so for the folks that are tuning in today, right, we have an audience of like people from Myanmar, overseas Myanmar folks, and something that we want to really like hit home like today is that there's so many parallels between the Philippines and Myanmar, like in the Asia Pacific. And so what had happened in the Philippines in the 80s and during the Marcos regime, there are also simultaneous regimes happening in the region. So in Myanmar, it was under Deng Shui, that we were facing repression in the side of Myanmar. And so there's parallels of when a fascism arises, as fascism increases, the people's resistance also it rises to the occasion to fight against fascism. And so Deng Shui is really known as like also a very, very brutal dictator. And so Marcos and Deng Shui have a lot in common, just as how today Min Aung Hlaing and Duterte have everything in common. Yeah.
Thank you, Wimunyi. Suyi, could you please add a little bit about Burma dictator?
What I see is people, taking the people's rights by force, and like, oh, we are the absolute power. And you see it again and again, like even back in the past and right now, people are always going to stand up and fight for what's right, like their voices, especially right now with COVID. You can see that that people are suffering even more and more, because it's not only just the dictators that they're facing, they're also facing this global pandemic. And amidst that, they're still fighting and making their voices heard. Like right now today, Nicole and Justine, they did their movement, and it's not only just them, it's like other youth as well as international other communities joining in. Like COVID-19 isn't going to stop people, the youth, especially the youth, for fighting for what's right.
Okay, I want to go another question. People really want to know what is going on, what went wrong in Philippines and also in Burma too. So could you please give us some background context or some important highlights that people should be aware of? I would like to start with the Philippine group. Nickel?
What is currently happening.
No, not really. Currently, plus just before when martial law comes in, what went wrong with the people?
Yeah, I think I want to give Justine the space to answer this one.
Thank you. One thing that we want to highlight that is a solid connection between our revolutionary roots and up until now is that when Marcos came into power in the 1960s, around the same time, that's when the youth and the anti-imperialist mass movement really started to be revived in the universities in the Philippines through study circles and the professors and the students. All of this was already brewing underground. And as Marcos came into power, he knew that there was already resistance on the ground. He knew that there was already a sharp youth on the ground being able to lift their criticisms to the government. And he saw this and became threatened by the anti-imperialist spirit that the youth and the masses had. And back in LFS draws its revolutionary roots to KM, Kabataan Makabayan, and they were the ones to really help spearhead the movement in the Philippines as the youth and student sector, and directly connecting it to right now in the current conditions in the Philippines under Duterte's regime and under his current terrible conditions in the Philippines, the youth and students or the youth and student organizations such as LFS and other organizations really take their stance to critique the government, and especially as us here in the United States are able to use our voice in a way that those in the Philippines are not able to.
Can I also add on to that? And also to give you more context, the Philippines is a semi-colony to the US, meaning that the US has its hands through military means, through law, like there's military agreements between the two countries so that the US can continue to exploit the people and the land, because the Philippines is really rich in natural resources. And because of that, they really wanted to have that control over the Philippines. And Marcos was US backed by President Dixon. So, yeah.
Yeah. Hi, Wumuji. Could you please add about Burma under military rule and recently coup?
Yeah, I think recently, right, February 1st, we're going 8 months into the coup. A lot of the tactics that have been used under the current coup, like Min Online, have also been used in previous like coups in 1962, in the 80s, and such. And the way it actually impacts the people is that there's widespread killings from the cities to the rural areas to the in the mountains, and there's kidnappings, there's torture, there's an overflow or of like prisons. The notorious prison Insane is where a lot of activists and also civilians who are like fighting for their rights get imprisoned too. It's like a very, very high state like security prison, and different prisons get occupied by people as like more and more youth and civilians get like are rising up. They're faced with like the brutality under the bullets, and now we have the problem of the worldwide like COVID pandemic. And so there's a lot of neglect that the Myanmar people are facing right now. Right now, there's nearing 500,000 COVID cases that have been contracted, and over 17,000 COVID-related deaths. And with the pandemic right now in Myanmar, it's also compounded, right? People are left to fend for themselves. The healthcare system is just like a wreck, right? There was already like poor infrastructure and not like help from the state. The average person, as it says, like gets maybe like $3 a day, if even, you know. And according to the statistics of APRN, the Asia Pacific Research Network, Myanmar takes it home as far as the civilians and people like paying out of their own pockets and not being taken care of by the government. And so in across various regimes, we see that the brutality is like increasingly like severe, and there's a lot at stake for the capitalists and the interests, you know, those that are in power. They want to they're doing anything necessary to hold on to their power, you know, their last thread. We know that right now they don't have the mass support of the people. Like it's literally the people against these dictators. And so it's so clear that they do not represent the majority. They don't represent the will and interest of all the sectors of society of Myanmar. And I appreciate what you know, Nicole and Justine was sharing, is like the conditions that were set for us to fight back. And what was shared is that the Philippines is a semi-colonial, semi-feudal society, right? And that it's still under, across the different puppet regimes in the Philippines, that it's still under US imperialism. Like Marcos didn't act alone, right? And currently Min Aung Hlaing is not acting alone. These are not, these are people that aren't just dictators on their own. They are like wielding the force through and the support of other, like whether it's domestic or foreign entities that put them in power. And with Min Aung Hlaing right now, any institution, any body that's being complete, that's you know, standing silent, is complacent and sides with the oppressor right now. And so institutions like ASEAN and UN, you know, we currently under this coup are asking for all international bodies and you know, solidarity forces to be on our side of the people and to denounce any form of brutality and repression right now.
Thank you, Wimo. I want to offer Sui, what would you like to add for important highlight after military coup in Burma, February 1st?
I would like to say like a recent thing that happened was like the acting president, right? He announced D-Day officially. So even though it has been happening since February 1st, like the announcement made it like really official, since, you know, like they recognize it, and then, you know, they're really going to be like fighting in it. And it also ties into with the youth joining the resistance as well, you know, and training, like undergoing training, like when they should be, you know, pursuing their dreams and goals. You know, they're undergoing training to fight for their country and for their families as well. And I would like to say that COVID is like another really big factor that's been affecting like what's been going on. You know, like the people who were detained, as Winwon said, you know, they were put in like Insane and other places. You know, since they've detained and kidnapped so many people, how, you know, they're put in like really tight areas. How can they do like social distancing and all those things? You know, I feel like them doing this, the military regime doing this, adds more to the number of people, you know, getting COVID and dying from it. You know? So I just want to say that they play a big role in also the deaths and also in spreading like COVID-19.
Thank you so much, Sui. I really appreciate. Today's show is From Myanmar to Philippine Youth Against the Fascism. I really like your slogan, your background. Everybody can see that. Let us be the last generation under the dictatorship. I really appreciate. Thank you so much for your slogan. We all live in under the most brutal regime in the world. I'm from Burma, Free Burma activist. since 1988. So now 33 years, they brutally cracked down the peaceful demonstration. They shot, kill more than 3,000 student people. A lot of terrible things happening since 1962, not today. Since 1962, first time military coup, and 1988, second time military coup. Now, 2021, February 1st, there is a third time military coup. I really appreciate your determination and your slogan. Let us be the last generation. I really appreciate it. That is the way it should be. We all need to stop the dictator across the wall, not only in Burma, not only in Philippines. So my next question is, why is international solidarity is important? May I ask from Wimongchi first?
Well, it was just shared earlier, you know, as the conversation's going, like we have so much to gain through international solidarity. The basis is there, right? There's so much we can gain, so many victories, so many also like strategies to be shared, right? We're facing some of the same problems, you know, right now. And what it comes down to it is that we're fighting for people over profit. We're denouncing capitalism and at its current stage, imperialism. Like we are anti-fascist youth, we are anti-imperialist youth, we are against dictatorships that are serving the interests of the imperialists. And right now, Myanmar and the Philippines in the Asia Pacific are also one of the same problems that we're facing is also the foreign interests and also being a ground for competition of like the U.S. and China, right? In Myanmar, we see multinational corporations like Chevron from the U.S., right, and also Total, a French company. If we look at the fight to stop Chevron to fund the Myanmar military, it's a clear example of what we're fighting against. And then in the Philippines, is there's different there's like Chinese-backed foreign interests that are also profiting off of like the hydroelectric projects in the indigenous region in the Cordilleras. There's so many examples of why we are fighting for our sovereignty, our national liberation, our people to see it that we see our victories, and international solidarity is required for us to win. It's completely required for us to win.
Thank you. May I go to Justin?
Yes, thank you. And as Win pointed out, under imperialism, we all share the common enemy. There are no underdeveloped countries, there are overexploited countries. And under imperialism, all of our struggles, they're connected. And if the imperialist countries are all helping each other and are all leveraging their power over the same people, then we as the oppressed people need to link arms and make sure that we have a united front against state terror, that we have a united front against oppression. And only through that are we able to really bring about genuine liberation and genuine sovereignty for all of us, because the oppression of one nation and one group is the oppression of all nations.
May I go to Nicole?
Yeah, I think Win and Justin hit many good points. One point that I was thinking about is how genuine is one's liberation if you're not taking up the struggle of other people's fights, whether that's in Myanmar, whether that's in Palestine. I think Win and Justine really highlighted that we have the same enemy, whether it's US, whether it's China wanting to continue to steal the land, steal the resources from the people. And if we are able to unite together, we're able to isolate the enemy. And that's what we want. We want to make the enemy weak. And if we are larger together, like if we're stronger together by numbers, for many reasons. And yeah, those are my thoughts.
May I go to Sui, please?
Yeah, I feel like international solidarity is really important and also plays a part in stopping the dictators, because of course there will be people that say, oh, this is our community, this is we're busy trying to solve our own issues, why should we reach out and also help out in other communities? And that is the wrong kind of thinking, because you're also looking only at your me bubble, and that's what's so wrong with everybody these days, especially with after the pandemic. So if we have to look past like the community, the issues within our own communities, and see the bigger picture, because you can't expect someone to come and solve the problems or fight the fight for you, because that's like a capitalistic expectation, because you're expecting somebody to do the work for you, and that's wrong, because this is everybody's fight, even if you're not like joining in the movements or anything, even if you are just signing petitions or spreading awareness, it is still like, standing up and fighting and pushing back. Just like, not taking action is basically you not doing anything, is already you did it. You did something already by not doing anything. Yeah. And international, just like Nicole said, we're stronger in numbers. Yeah, the dictators, they're just like a few people with supporters in their back. But when we rise up, the youth and everybody who doesn't accept this shouldn't be happening, then there's like all of us against them. So yeah, that's all from me.
By the way, Sui, when did you involve in, what was the experience like? When did you get involved in Free Burma, Save Myanmar?
Okay. So I started like February 1st. That was like that's when I started. I didn't think I would be here right now, or doing the things that I'm doing, or meeting new people, from other communities. I would be like helping them out. I didn't think that, but yeah, I started back then and still doing it. And yeah, I'm going to continue doing it also.
How about Wimonji?
For me, yeah, I think being an activist, in the community has been pretty rewarding, pretty exciting. I started with it, I feel like I came back full circle. Like I started my community, and then I was in a lot of other communities and strengthening solidarity there. And now it's like the revolution just like popped off in Myanmar, and like it's like yeah, I can't even put into words, but I like how yeah, we're doing an active, international solidarity right now, like educating and agitating our folks, like, and like what Suyi said, like it's mutual, totally. We have so much to gain together, and so I think being in the also organizing alongside like the Filipino community has strengthened in my view and perspective in also waging like the Spring Myanmar Revolution alongside like Myanmar youth too. So yeah.
How about Nicole? When did you start it? What was your experience?
For me, I joined League of Filipino Students 3 years ago, and I remember I was really wanting to get involved in some type of community at a San Francisco State University. And I remember going to an event and I saw LFS do a performance skit about the issues in the Philippines. And I remember really being moved about like the militancy LFS had, and the almost like it was intimidating, but I was like, I want to be part of this. I want to be part of something bigger than me. And I had no idea what was going on in the Philippines, but I'm half Filipino. So I was like, I want to know what is going on in my culture, what's going on to my people. And ever since you know, it's been an amazing experience, and I've learned many things, and I'm happy to be here as well.
Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your experience. I wanna ask Justin, how about you? When did you study? What was your experience?
Yeah, so actually, I just started organizing with LFS a little less than a year ago, and it has been such an amazing process since taking up the active struggle and being on the ground and really organizing with your community and finding and leading into that collective strength, that collective care in order to wage these larger battles. It's been nothing but transformative. Prior, I was, here I was in school writing about, writing and studying all of these theories, but what use is all of that when you're not putting it into practice? And LFS really gave that outlet for me to really, sharpen my analysis and put what I'm learning to work.
That's great. Thank you so much for sharing your experience. I have another question. Another question: what is the youth join the armed resistance? Being trained for fight for the country, fight for the freedom. So I'm also 88 student generation. After military took over the power, we crossed the Thai-Burma border and we formed student army. More than 10,000 students with us. We form All Burma Student Democratic Front. We call ABSDF Student Army, and we fought back Burmese army. Till now, we are ready to fight again. In 2012, they start offer for peace talk. We agree that we are willing to talk peacefully, way to solve the problem. But see, now dictator took over the power again and again and again. This is the third time. How can we solve the problem peacefully? My question is, why is the youth join the armed resistance to train and fight back brutal regime to free their country? In Burma, there are many people defense forces. Generation Z, they join the armed resistance. So I want to go with that question to Wimongji first.
Well, right now, youth are joining armed resistance because there is no other choice, right? The conditions are set for us to fight back, and there has been the civil disobedience movement, right? There has been peaceful protests. There has been people voicing their concerns, and even at that, they're being they're being attacked and kidnapped, and essentially the gun has been already pointed to their heads, you know, and it's that's why youth are decisive to join, to be trained, and to fight alongside ethnic armed organizations, being trained, and being able to arm themselves, right? Because the military is putting bullets through their heads. There's been so many youth martyrs since the coup, and also historical martyrs like before this 2021 coup. And armed resistance, right, is it's necessary in this fight. September 7th was a significant day, in that it spelled out, it called to the people to be on the side of the revolution, to support the People's Defense Force, to recognize the National Unity Government, and that in the 14 points that was shared by the standing Prime Minister, when that announcement was made on September 7th, it was shared that our revolution is a just revolution and a necessary one. And so when we have the calls like "Let us be the last generation under dictatorship," it comes out of the will to win. And as Kukule says, of course we, peace talks would people would, our forces would happily engage, but that's not the current condition right now. There are groups in there are forces in Myanmar that have never let down their arms, and so we want to carry on the fight and carry on the legacy and support, as youth overseas, where we're positioned at. We aren't like in the jungle or being like trained, but what we can do at the moment is support the cause of the people that are in Myanmar, that are waging the fight in the jungles, and also like in the cities, and are showing their discontent for the current military regime. And so we have no other choice but to arm ourselves. And so that's why we're in full support of the People's Defense Force, and want the People's Defense Force to strengthen, and for there to be unity in this fight.
Thank you so much, Wumongji. I like to continue to Burmese activists too. So Sui, how do you think why the youth join their armed struggle? What is the reason?
As Wimon said, there's literally no other choice but to fight. The military regime, they forced their hand, they forced the people hand. When it first started happening, people were doing like Badao strikes, or or protesting peacefully at night, with peace, nothing but peace. And they take it to the streets to voice their opinions, but what are they met with? They're met with brutal crackdowns from the get-go. Like they aren't treating they aren't reacting peacefully. And we have to, in this case, we have to fight fire with fire, because we don't want there to be like any more dictatorships. We want to be the last generation under dictatorships. So of course, like, this is necessary that we have to, for the youth to take up arms and fight against a dictatorship, because it has come to that situation, because it already happened in the past, and people handle it too, and they're still here back again. So we have to, when you want to like uproot something as like poisonous as this, you really have to go into it and really get rid of it. And this is what the youth are, what they're doing.
Thank you so much, Sui. We really appreciate for sharing your thought. Appreciate it. I want to ask Nicole, how do you think why youth join the armed forces?
Yeah, so League of Filipino Students, we actually see the primary struggle, armed struggle, and we see legal struggle secondary. So we see that, like Win was saying and Suyi was saying, that legal struggle alone is not enough. Like, we need to take up arms, and we need to fight the enemy head on in that way, because playing at their game is just not, if anything, one story that comes to mind that one person told me was like, if you're in a village and you get word the enemy is going to come with guns and they're going to shoot people, what are you going to do? Just sit back? No, you're going to fight back as well, knowing they're going to continue to kill people. And with youth, like we've seen historically in the Philippines, youth support that. For example, Lorena Barros, she was a student in the Philippines, and she gave up her education to go to the countryside to take up arms, because she saw that was necessary. And overall, not just students, but young people, young workers, young peasants, young indigenous people in the Philippines, like, we need to continue this, as this fight is not going to happen overnight. It's like a generational, it's protracted, it's a long battle. So we need the help of the youth to keep that going, to keep that drive and revolutionary optimism going. Yes.
Thank you so much. How about Justin?
Yeah, and like just building off what everyone has been saying already, it's not just enough to reform the system. Yes, you could pass laws, and yes, you could do policy, and yes, you could voice your dissent on public opinion, but at the end of the day, if the state acts out in violence, there's no way to combat that. There's no way to peacefully go about their game and beat them at it. The only way that they would respond is if you show them that you won't be stepped over, that you won't be repressed, and it's only through armed struggle that you're able to make that statement without being waved off and being moved through the system to be suppressed. And so with the youth and students, their role in pushing forward the movement is not only making sure that those around them are more acclimated to the cause and use their position as youth and as students to reach those in their community and engage them in these discussions to garner support for those calls, and so that the armed struggle where it's happening, it's not isolated, it has support. And even if you're not actively taking arms, there is that you know that you are not alone in that struggle.
Wow, that is a very strong message. Really appreciate. So I really appreciate for all your time and effort and participation in this talk show, the Voice of International Youth. Finally, I want you guys to share their resources. Could you please share us for some resources that we can use for help from an online perspective? Who would you like to start? Nicole or Justin?
Oh, what resources or campaigns to connect people to?
Yes.
Yeah, like you guys organizations or yeah, stuff like that.
Yeah, so League of Filipino Students at San Francisco State University. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook. And a current campaign we're taking up is called the Kamting campaign, and it's a way to address the conditions of overseas Filipino workers, where we've seen that because of the pandemic, it has heightened the conditions of the people where their health is not being prioritized, but the military is. And we see specifically with overseas Filipino workers, like having to return back home, having to be jobless, not being able to provide for their families going hungry, even them getting positive for COVID or even dying from COVID, and also connecting it to the call, Duterte Waka Sana, meaning end Duterte now, end his presidency, as he is trying to run again for vice president and continue his tyranny on the people. Yeah, and Justine, if you wanted to add.
Thank you so much, Nicole. How about Suyi?
Oh wait, Justine was gonna add something.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
No, thank you. So I put in the chat a link to Wakasana, which links to a website that really details the like what Duterte has done and why exactly we're calling for his oust and the end of his reign of terror. As Nicole mentioned earlier, he is confirmed to run for VP in the upcoming election. And with the tendency of Philippine governments to have these political dynasties, we can't allow his reign of terror to continue. We can't allow the extrajudicial killings, the state terror to continue on the Filipino people, the neglectful COVID response, the corrupt deals with imperialist forces. If Duterte were to continue his reign with his daughter as president and him as VP, we're going to see these problems continue.
Thank you. How about Wimonji or Sui? Whoever. Go first time, fine.
I can share. A really cool thing that Wimon shared with me was this like a interactive website about everything that has happened in Burma, and it's just like there's also the list of people who were detained, in the 6 months, and also like since like February 1st their names, and also how they are put into the camps, and also like the army compound and the main entrance, everything. So I can put it in the chat. Yeah, that's like a cool.
And I think a current campaign that we have is there's like multiple ones, and the ones that that's very much like really like prime right now is the Save Myanmar UN Credential Challenge campaign. And the campaign has 3 demands. One is for the UN representative, or Ucho Moton, to be recognized as the UN representative in the upcoming General Assembly that's happening right now. That's September 14th to the 21st. He's also going to be actually speaking on the 27th, I believe. And then the second demand is for the recognition of the National Unity Government. So that's the government that is countering, the SAC, the State Administrative Council. And so we want the military regime, junta, the SAC, to be disposed. And then third is for any international bodies, participating governments at the UN, to support in aid assistance for COVID for Myanmar, as well as for aid for IDPs, internally displaced persons. Those that have been displaced internally, like heavily impacted by the current military regime. And so those are the 3 demands of the current campaign, the UN Credential Challenge campaign. And our call for that campaign is for the UN to accept the National Unity Government and to reject the military junta. We also have other campaigns that are parallel to what the Filipino community is also fighting for, alongside, right, like passing the PHRA, the Philippine Human Rights Act, for the Philippines to stop military aid that is going to the current U.S. Duterte regime. And then in parallel, we have the Burma bill, which is actually going to be introduced this month as well. And so, we have legislative campaigns, we have simultaneous parallel mass campaigns. So for anyone that's listening or interested, we'll also be sharing that too, and continuously talking about it.
Thank you. And also, I like to add the upcoming campaign. The one is the blood money campaign. How and where the money come from to military regime in Burma. So this is a very important campaign. It will be global campaign, but we like to start from United States and France because of Chevron and Total. So we need to start from that one. I like to introduce with that black money campaign we will do coming soon, very soon. And also currently we are doing for Credential Challenge campaign, and later on, crime against humanity campaign, war crime campaign to Burmese military regime. They can't run away from justice. We will bring them to justice. This is our destination. We are not revenging. We are bringing them to the justice. This is what we are doing. I also really appreciate for all of the young leader. So future should be for the young people. Whatever they want, whatever you guys shape up the wall. Now under all these technology, the wall is pretty small. So you can shape up the wall. What kind of wall do you want it? You want to see what kind of legacy you want to leave behind you. So you guys are now is young leader. Future, you're going to lead your country. So this is a very important message for all young people. You all has to get involved in all freedom movement, justice, and democracy and peace. So this is very important for future of the world. Nobody want to live under any form of dictator, any form of military dictatorship, authoritarian. Nobody want to live. People want to live with dignity. People want to live democratic society. This is the way it should be. We are living in United States. We have a freedom. So why don't we try some people who are living in the most brutal military regime in the world? So this is our duty, cosmetic duty, to help the other people freedom from fear, to gain democracy and human rights. So I would like to end this program. Please say a few words, then we're gonna close up this talk show. Who's gonna start? A few minutes, a few words, conclusion.
I can start.
All right, right on. Go ahead.
Oh, I just want to say that doing, getting involved in, within the issues of your community and others, you don't have to be oh, I know everything that's going on. Or, you don't have to know everything. You just have to know that what's happening in front of you, or, what you're seeing is, not right, that this shouldn't happen. Just that is enough for you to, join in with the movement, or join in any groups that you see, especially for students. I know that people would be discouraged because of COVID and everything, but you can still do something. Ukukule said, we have technologies. Even if you're not going out there and joining in the movement, you can still do online stuff like signing petitions, or sharing resources to your friends or your classmates, like that. So I just want to say that take action during these times, and not just stand idly by and do nothing. Yeah.
Great. Who's next? Who's next?
I can go next.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So thank you again, Winmon and Sui and everyone here, for having LFS speak on this. One thing that just kept ringing in my head is the importance of collective life and international solidarity. I feel like Sui, you really talked about that today, how we live in the US, in the belly of the beast of an imperialist country where individualistic culture is so prevalent. You just focus on yourself, especially this pandemic. It's made people really isolated, it has increased isolation and really just be cut off. And I think what this has made me think about is what's really important is seeing how your struggle alone, whether it's depression or whether it's working too much or it's school, it's connected to other people too. And if you think about that locally and then nationally and then internationally, it's like a wave, And and I really would love for us to continue to, beyond this talk show, to continue to build that relationship. And even I want to have more of a formal situation or what's going on too. So that other people in LFS and other folks can get connected and see more deeply the parallels of our struggles.
Great. Who's next?
Again, also, big gratitude to everyone and building tonight with us and having the opportunity to have to sow the seeds of this this solidarity. And so thank you for everyone for this opportunity. And one thing that I'm thinking about is within Filipino activism, there's this phrase that we have. It's "Makibaka wag matakot," and it means dare to struggle, don't be afraid. And specifically within the context of this conversation, with the heightening political conditions and with how dire the situation is, we as youth, we as students really need to challenge the comfortability that we have, the privileges that we have, and walk the path of activism and walk the path of struggle, and really actively be critical of what we're learning, what we're doing, and how we live our lives. And so, yeah, that's my ending thoughts.
Thank you. Who's last?
Hey everyone. So I'm like also really grateful to have been part of this conversation and discussion, and knowing that this is just we're planting the seeds, and we do want to strengthen, right, organization to organization, from people to people, like deepen our relationships. And I feel like we are we're like part of that, and we have a role to to continue having discussions like tonight, beyond just today, and through actively engaging in supporting each other's campaigns, supporting, amplifying each other's calls, right? And just like let the, let the world hear that, we won't stand for any dictatorship. And so I feel that, I think my last thoughts is also that there's much more, to be shared of like the conditions and the layout and the landscape and the struggle of the national democratic movement of the Philippines with the Spring Myanmar Revolution too. And so we have, I'm really grateful to be in part of the generation, this generation, to like see a lot of the seeds being planted, and also like continuing that legacy and that torch. And so also thank like Gogole for also being like having also held that torch too, and continuing to giving like the youth a platform to speak. And today is pretty significant all across. Today is the anniversary commemoration of like martial law, and it also commemorates that students are like, are so fire, are like so militant, and we want to reiterate that the power of the youth like holds so much, and we can wield so much, from Myanmar to the Philippines, from across the world. And so today, really grateful and thankful that this platform, Voice of Youth, is hosting kind of conversations like this, and that League of Filipino Students and the National Democratic Movement is like the first to kind of launch this program, as far as like the bi-weekly alternating week of Voice of International Youth, and then alternating week Voice of Youth of like Myanmar youth. So excited. Thanks for sharing everything, learning so much. And I think we can we can also take a photo together, and also call on anyone else to also join us in chanting too. And I think we should chant both like the call that Justine shared, that holds a lot of significance, especially commemorating today's anniversary of martial law and youth resistance in the Philippines. So I call on Justine to lead that call. And
Before we close out, why don't we extend our platform to Palestinian, Afghanistan? They have a youth, we want to hear their voice and share together and work together. Why don't we invite them in future talk show?
Of course, let's
Go
do
ahead.
it. Cool.
Who's gonna do
And then
chanting?
let's do the Makipaka Wagmatako, and then we'll also share the chant Aoyami. We can share that too. So maybe Justine, you kick it off first.
Gotcha. All right. So I'll say Makibaka, and the response, Wagmatakot. Yeah. Makibaka.
Wag matakot.
Cool. And then I guess we can do Aoyami. Okay. So I'll say it's like 3 times, and then at the last part we say Aongo Aoyami. Yay, thanks for spelling that out, see. Okay. So I'll say Ayirobon, and y'all say Aoyami. Ayirobon.
Aoyami.
Ango Aoyami.
Yeah. Ayirobon.
အောင်ရ
အောင်
မည်
ရမည်
အရေးတော်ပုံ
အောင်ရ
အောင်
မည်
ကို
အောင်ရမည်
အောင်ရ
အောင်ကိုအောင်ရမည်
အောင်ရမည်
Right.
freedom justice democracy လောက်ရမယ်
Oh yeah, let's do that one.
for both
Okay. For Myanmar and the Philippines.
yeah
We could do Myanmar first. Freedom, justice, democracy. Myanmar must
be free
yeah. Okay.
yeah
Freedom, justice,
Just-
democracy.
မြန်မာ
Myanmar must be free
free
Freedom, justice, democracy.
မြန်မာ must be free
And then for the Philippines,
okay
freedom, justice, democracy.
Philippines
Philippines must be
Must
free
be free.
Freedom, justice, democracy.
Philippines
Philippines must be free
Must be free.
Awesome. Okay.